Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. These are the first parsnips that I've dug this autumn. It's a variety called Tender and True. And these roots look good and they smell delicious too. I love that parsnippy smell. And the reason why I'm digging them today is because last night we had our first frost of the season. And they always say that parsnips taste better once they've had a frost because that intensifies the sugars in the root. And although it was really cold when I got up this morning, the sun has burnt through, the light is glorious, the sky is blue, and the garden is still looking good. Coming up on today's programme, Carol luxuriates in the glory of cannas.
For very little investment, they pay huge dividends.
Toby Buckland visits a garden with an amazing array of plants from all over the world.
What I really love about the garden is that it has a holiday happiness.
And I shall be planting up a winter pot for the jewel garden and also collecting herbs that I can store and use over the coming months. The spring garden is only just beginning to emerge from its summer dormancy. And by about November, December, we'll start to see new shoots coming through. But one plant has remained undimmed by drought, sunshine, or pretty much total neglect. And this is the Smilacina, Smilacina racemosa. I love it. It's got wonderful white plumes of flower, followed by bright red berries. Definitely a really good plant for a dry, shady spot, a woodland border. But this one has outgrown its position. It's out of proportion to the rest of the planting. I want to move this and take a chunk off for putting elsewhere in the garden. One of the advantages of moving plants in autumn is that whilst they've still got their full growth, even if it's beginning to fade a little bit, you can get the proportions right. And the soil is still warm. Plant them now, the roots will get established, and next spring they will hardly know they've been moved. The easiest way to divide this is simply to chop it in two. Don't be timid about it, just go for a chop. There we go. It's always a good idea to divide a plant when you move it. Division and replanting reinvigorates them. Firm around the roots really well, and then you can see the sort of scale that it's going to be, and at this point cut it back to the ground, and that takes any possible stress off the roots, and then of course water it well, and that's all you have to do. And next spring there will be new growth, new shoots, and very quickly it will establish into a strong, healthy plant. But there's no reason why you have to wait until then for the garden to look good. You can keep it going over winter. And we do ask for you to send in your gardening problems. And we did have a letter from Anne and Andy Jenkins in Hertfordshire, who said that they like their garden in summer, but they wish they could make it look a little bit better during the winter months. So Francis went along to give them a hand.
Winter doesn't mean our gardens need to look bleak and bare. If we choose the right plants, then even on those cold, short days, there can be something fragrant and colourful to lure us back outdoors. I've come to share some planting ideas with Anne and Andy, who want to revamp the space around this seating area. What is it about that that's not working at the moment?
It needs a bit more colour after losing all the summer plants, so some colour for autumn, winter and going into spring.
OK, and what are you kind of hoping to see when it's done?
I would love to get some shade. I think it's absolutely fantastic area. It really catches the sun in the evening.
But with baby on the way and Harry being so small, it'd be great if it was a little bit more shaded.
OK, that makes sense. There are some great plant combinations that can make this space work. So, Anne, if you don't mind giving me a hand.
Love to, it sounds great.
And Anne, I think maybe you can chill out whilst we're doing the digging.
Happily.
Let's get started.
OK.
First, Andy and I are going to make space for the new planting scheme, clearing out the annuals that are coming to the end of their season and the plants that have become overgrown.
There we go.
There we go. What do you think?
That looks great, doesn't it?
So this should make a really lovely feature, Prunus autumnalis, which is one of the only very, very few cherries that flower in the autumn and the winter.
Okay.
So quite a rare thing in itself. But it's also got really good autumn colour and really lovely spring colour. So when the leaves are coming
brilliant.
out, they're quite a bronzy colour.
Yeah.
And in a small garden, it's really important that your trees make a big impact for as much of the year as they can. So
Certainly going to do that.
really make sure this is well watered, especially for the first year. And this is quite a large tree. You really have to concentrate on establishing it as quickly as possible. Should we have a look?
OK.
That looks brilliant, doesn't it?
I like that. Yeah, that looks fantastic there.
Suddenly it's so much more three-dimensional.
It's really added some structure and some interest as well. OK, one stake.
Let's stake it. The thing to remember is you need to stake all new trees to stop the roots from rocking, which is very damaging to them, breaking off all the new fibrous roots. But you do want it to have some sway because that helps the trunk to thicken. So never higher than a third, but always do it.
OK, so we're going to give it a good drink.
As well as the beautiful prunus, I want to add some midwinter structure, and nothing does that better than a cornice. Coloured stem varieties of cornice brighten up any border during the winter months. This is Flaviromea, and it's got bright yellow stems that if you cut them back in about February time, it will shoot up and the following winter will be full of colour. But as well as that, it has autumn colour on the leaves and some lovely white blossoms. I'm going to leave Andrew to plant that one, and I'm going to meet Anne around the front. Anne, I see you're a fan of containers.
I am, yes. Lots of pots.
So I thought some nice winter containers would be nice for you. So I've gone for some hellebores. Few plants light up a winter garden like hellebores. These perennials come in a stunning range of colours and are one of the stars of the garden, flowering as early as December right through to March. And then just some classic violas around the edge. There we go. So two of them. This should look brilliant.
Excellent.
There.
That's great.
They look nice, don't they?
Yes.
But as well as things that look good, I also wanted to bring in some fragrance to the front of the house too. So I've got this, which is a Viburnum crossbodden intense, which is a lovely winter flowering shrub. It will lose all of its leaves, and in their place will be beautiful pink clusters of really nicely scented flowers. Thank you. Now make sure you keep that really watered at least for the first year and feed it a lot through the summer so it can build up all the reserves it needs to flower in the winter. But hopefully that will bring you years of joy.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Right, don't forget the tools. Now it's time to plant up the rest of the border in the back garden, and all the family, including little Harry, have come to give me a helping hand. So these will all go underneath here. So this is Hakadakloa, which is a Japanese grass, which doesn't get much bigger than this. It will just stay green, apart from through the autumn when it gets a kind of bronzy colour to it.
Lovely, yeah.
So you cut that back in about February time, and then it will just become this size again next year. So nothing too big
Perfect.
and unruly. Epimedium, this is a really lovely plant for shade and for drought. And that'll go near the back, because eventually that will form a mound of probably about this sort of size. And then in the spring, you have a chance to see some very delicate yellow flowers that will throw themselves up from above the foliage. And this is a hardy geranium, Mycorrhizum spessart. The nice thing about this one is it's turning this lovely red colour.
Yeah,
so it has
lovely.
autumn colour,
Nice.
which you sort of tend to think of as being trees rather than perennials. That's a lovely one. I'm also planting geranium, pink penny, and geranium sanguineum Cannon Miles, which will bridge the gap between summer and autumn.
That looks fantastic.
Brilliant,
Yeah,
thank
looks
you.
great.
Good. I'll get planting. Finally, I'm adding crocus and daffodil bulbs for early season colour. But snowdrops are a classic bulb for the winter months. Either plant them in the green after flowering, or when they're in bloom in the winter.
Does that look good?
Oh, yeah,
What do you think?
brilliant.
And hopefully in years to come it will get fuller and fuller and even better. And then you can fill the whole of the garden with winter interesting.
Whilst, of course, any colour that you can bring into the garden in the middle of winter is going to be cheery, I do think the key is structure. And if that looks good, be it through trees, hedges, then the garden can only get better as colour starts to work its way back in. Now, I'm thinking not of winter here, but of next spring. And the colour that this spring garden has can be really intense. But I confess it's fallen off a bit. And what this garden lost was that electric intensity. And I want to bring it back. And I'm going to do so by adding 3 different euphorbias. Now, the first one I'm putting in here is Euphorbia palustris. Now, there are lots and lots of different types of euphorbias. And this one grows quite large. It can grow to about 6 foot tall, given the right conditions. And it's one of the very few euphorbias that like damp soil. But do not plant it in a bog garden next to a pond, because the sap that comes from euphorbia can kill fish within minutes. So keep them away from ponds. But before I start to handle and plant it, I'm going to put on some gloves, because the sap is an irritant. So this is one of those plants where you should always wear gloves when you're handling them. Other than that, it's very simple. Just take it out and pop it in the hole. A tip for a moisture-loving plant is dig the planting hole, then fill it full of water and let the water drain away. And what that does is it gets water down below the roots. So the roots will grow down and reach it. And next year, when it gets very dry, there are deep roots that will suffer much less from drought. Now, this will give you, as well as that intense, new, zingy growth in spring, some colour in winter, because you've got these coral-coloured pink stems. Now, this next euphorbia is Euphorbia martinii. It likes a bit more drainage and is better in drought than the palustris. It can cope with full sun, it can cope with some light shade, and it's not at all fussy about pH. And this will bear flowers that have a pale green outer layer of sepals, and then the tiny little true flowers in the middle are intense red. And it's that red that makes the green all the more vibrant. Don't mind me, Nigel. Now, this has got more of a matted root, and let's just break it up a little bit. So that can go in there. And that will grow about 3-4 foot tall. Now, the final euphorbia that I'm going to plant is the smallest of the lot. This is Euphorbia amygdaloides, and this is the perfect one for dry woodland shade. Now, this is about as much sun as this particular spot gets. And this old hazel has got roots that suck up moisture. So not many plants feel comfortable here. The wood spurge will be quite happy. And it is a really good plant for those awkward corners. Now, there are lots and lots of euphorbias to choose from, but these three will be all part of a specific job, which is to rejuvenate this spring garden. And there's no question that all gardens need a boost every few years, and that is the way you keep them looking as good as they possibly can. All summer, this pot was planted up with sweet peas and underplanted with Japanese bloodgrass. Now, I don't want to leave this empty for the winter, but I'm not going to put colour in it. What I do want to add is structure, because green structure can be just as powerful as colour if you use really strong elements. Now, if you've got a really big pot, a good tip that we saw from Arit last week was to put old plastic pots that you don't have a use for in the bottom to bulk it out. And by the way, if you've got any ideas of how best to use pots that can't be recycled, then let us know via social media. Now, I don't need to do that here because I want to keep quite a lot of the soil. However, I do want to move some because I need to plant some tulips that will give me colour in spring, and they need to go quite deep. Now, I'm going to put a layer of grit because all I want to do is to make sure that the tulips aren't waterlogged. You can see it's quite deep. Tulips have much stronger stems the deeper you plant them, and they can easily be a foot underground. This is a tulip called ballerina. It has an intense orange flower, and it's a lily-formed tulip. It's got pointy petals, starts flowering round about the middle of April and goes on into May. Now, you will perhaps be wondering why I'm planting tulips at the beginning of October, when all advice normally is don't plant tulips till November. And that's because I'm putting them in a pot. The reason why you plant them in November is to avoid tulip fire, which is a fungal problem that is resident in the soil. However, in a pot, where I know that there is no tulip fire in the pot, there's no reason why you can't plant them now. Put them around the outside, and they will grow up through some of the planting, but not the centrepiece, so I've left that free. Right, they are beneath a nice blanket of soil. And the centrepiece is going to be this box, like that. It's Buxus sempervirens hansworthiensis, which is a particularly thick-leafed, fast-growing box that has proved pretty much blight resistant. And this one, for example, I've grown from a cutting and hasn't been pruned in any way at all yet. But in a year or two, this will make a good cone. Now, it's only going to spend this winter here, and then I will move it and grow it on. And all the cones in the cricket pitch in the pots there started life at least as unshapely as this. Now, obviously, this doesn't look remotely like a cone or any kind of shape, but in there is a leader. This stem is fairly upright, so if I just take that off there, that then is the top of my cone. Because that's my top, I'm just going to take that off and that one off. That is enough to start with. Now, this doesn't look spectacular, it doesn't look crisp, but when everything else is derelict and empty, the box adds substance. And that's what you need to get you through the grey winter days. Now, a plant that has no greyness about it at all, but is dancing through these autumn days with real elegance and grace, is the nerine. And last year, we joined a nerine fancier, Mark Heath, as he went to visit a garden full of them near Shrewsbury in Shropshire.
I love Nerinias because they are a beautiful autumn flower, giving a wonderful amount of colour at the time of the year when everything's starting to fade. There's about 23 species altogether, different Nerinias, all originating in South Africa. Bowdenii is the most commonly grown Nerini within the United Kingdom, but there have been many questions about the hardiness of each particular cultivar. One of the reasons why I have grown to love Nerinias was because when I first joined the RHS, I went to a meeting of the Nerini and Amaryllis Society, and I then met Margaret Owen. And Margaret Owen was an incredible plantswoman of her time. She held the national collection of Bowdenii here in her Shropshire garden, and she was totally convinced they were hardier and more versatile plants than given credit for. She would just be pointing her stick and said, "Get it out there, get people to know what a wonderful plant it is." Margaret's garden is a little bit overgrown and unfortunately neglected at the present moment, but you can see that still the Nerinias are thriving here, in shade, in semi-shade and in sunshine. Margaret would be a person who would look at where the plants came from and do her own thinking and not believe everything that was written in a book. So she pioneered the way to new garden thinking. After the harsh cold winter of 2011, when the temperature in her garden dropped below -15, Margaret noted that the following year, all the Nerinias that she had within her garden, they survived, and that convinced her of the hardiness of the Nerinias. So she set about campaigning for the RHS to undertake an official trial to prove that her beloved Nerines were indeed hardy, garden-worthy plants. That trial began in 2013, and we're now in the final year. The trial we have here is looking at Bowdenii cultivars and hybrids. We set the Nerini trial in two different places, one in the north of England and one in the south of England. The north of England being here in Shropshire, which is one of the coldest counties in the country, and the south of England being in Hampshire at Bramdean. So this trial is to show how Nerinias will survive in the garden despite the cold temperatures that we have. There are many, many shades of pink, from a dark pink to a light pink, all the way through to very pale pinky whites. One of the darkest pinks is a cultivar called Isabel. Now, Isabel, we are finding, though, performs best in the south of England, where it is a lot warmer. We think Isabel is a cross between Bowdenii, which is the hardy type, and Sarniensis, which is the species that does require protection in the winter because it's not hardy. When we're looking at Nerinias, we're looking to see how they perform in the garden with regards to when they flower, the height of the flower, how they bulk up. Do they bulk up quickly? We have some cultivars here that have bulked up from an initial planting of 5 bulbs right up now to 147 bulbs. One particular variety has done that within 5 years. There's a variety called Pink Frostwork. One of the things that you really must remember is to be patient, 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 because Nerines don't like disturbance. If they are disturbed, you will have a subsequent poor performing plant the following year. The results of the trial will not be known until early next year, March early next year. But there are some new experimental varieties in which we're getting very, very excited about, particularly this one in front of me, which is a compact type. It has 14 flowers per each individual scape. It has a lovely, lovely colour. The perianth is really, really nice and red and makes a very, very attractive form for the garden or a patio container. And I think it would be a fitting tribute to Margaret to name one of these new experimental varieties as a cultivar Margaret Owen, as a fitting tribute to an absolutely wonderful lady, a wonderful plantswoman who was kind and generous and wanted to spread her knowledge for everybody.
If that has inspired you to grow nerines for the first time, you can go to our website where you will find the results of that RHS trial, and there is a list of 11 of the Bowdenii group that have been given their Award of Garden Merit, and that pretty much guarantees that they will do their stuff and they will do it well in most gardens. Now, the one thing I would say, that if you live in a coldish area like Longmeadow and it is wet and you have heavy soil, which is what we have here, then probably it is better to grow them in pots. Now this is a variety called Nerine flexuosa alba, and it is less hardy than the Bowdenii groups, but it's very beautiful. And I just love that combination of sort of floral energy and dynamism combined with graceful elegance. Now, still to come, Nick goes to Lancashire to visit a garden that has run wild, but as a result has a remarkable collection of fungi.
They're like the classic fairy tale mushroom, aren't they?
They're beautiful. They're absolutely stunning.
But first, Toby Buckland visits the garden of Margaret Jewell in Barnstaple, Devon, which she has been making over the last 30 years.
This is the Croft, a garden containing an amazing variety of plants, carefully tended and loved by a very passionate plantswoman. Margaret Jewell has organically developed this 1-acre garden over 35 years. It's divided into different areas, each with its own distinct style, including perennials, a lush tropical garden, and Japanese-inspired pools and topiary. So when you first started, did you have a vision for what the garden would become?
Not really, no. You've got to start with the basics, and once you've got the basics in, like your conifers and your trees and that sort of thing, you can then build the beds.
The garden seems so exotic, and there's a lot of references to Japan. I mean, is world travel your thing?
I've never been to Japan, but I've always had a feeling for a Japanese garden because it's so calming, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly added personality, but more than that, you've done it really well because the planting's so lovely, and that evolved, didn't it, from a very 70s low-maintenance type of garden?
Yes. I put the conifers in first into an ordinary garden at that time. I decided then that I would like to make the Japanese garden. The conifers had grown to about 4 or 5 foot high.
Yeah.
And I went and got the secateurs, and I just kept clipping it, turning them into cloud prune conifers, like you see now.
But you've done the woodwork for the summer houses yourself.
Yes, I was a dressmaker, so I knew how to measure things, and if you measure things correctly, your wood will then fit in as long as it's cut precisely.
The lawn is a triumph. What's your secret?
I think the lawn actually makes the garden. If you look after your lawn, then it sets the whole garden off. Twice a year, I actually feed it with pelleted chicken manure.
Oh, yeah?
I spread it all over. I literally spray it with your hands.
You don't want to do this when you've got guests coming round the next
Absolutely not, because of the smell.
The diversity of plants here is extraordinary. I can't wait to get amongst them. What I really love about the garden is that it has a holiday happiness, because it's filled with plants that you might see on vacation, particularly if you go on holiday abroad. There's ginger lilies, they're from India, and this, eucalyptus, from South Africa. You can miss sparkling burgundy. It looks so exotic, but it's actually relatively easy to grow if you remember two things. It's a bulbous plant that likes sun, and you've got to plant the bulb deep to keep it out from the frost. The other thing to know is that slugs love it, particularly when the leaves are emerging from the ground in May. But if you protect them then, you get these lovely waxy inflorescences in summer, topped with a Carmen Miranda-like hat. It's shaped like a pineapple. It's just a wonderful thing. The border design plays its part as well. You see how it's sort of sinewy and relaxed, and that's echoed in other parts of this garden with the island beds as well. Now, serpentine designs are functional, particularly on south-facing borders. You see, it throws the front of the border into sunshine, which suits the echeverias and succulents like aloes. Meanwhile, at the back of the border, it makes it look fuller, as if it's burgeoning straight from the forest or the jungle. With Japanese gardening, it's not just about what you grow, it's how you grow it. You see, plants need pruning, and Margaret, she's not shy with the secateurs. This golden bamboo is a great example. Now, left to its own devices, it would be a lowering great lump, as gloomy as a storm cloud. But pruned so that the older combs, that's the canes, are taken from the centre, just keeping the brightest and the best so the light spills through. My favourite bit of pruning, though, are these conifers. Margaret trained out, wired out the thickest stems, removed all the rest, and then from the tufts she grew these clouds, turning what was a plant that no one wanted into a piece of living sculpture. And you'll have to believe me when I say this, but it's like touching the head of someone who's just had a crew cut. It's just lovely. Oh, I can't keep my hands off them. As well as the latest plants and contemporary planting ideas, there are also older ideas that have been honed to perfection, like island beds. And they work best when you remember these simple tricks. The first is have more than one of them and lay them out across the ground so that they're in a kind of paisley pattern, or yin and yang, spinning in on themselves, because that guides your eye to the parts in between. One other thing, on the corners, always look for architectural plants, plants with an interesting shape, or evergreens, because they'll add a bit of interest, even in winter when everything else has gone to ground. And one final thing, every island should have some treasure. And what about this trove of golden daisies? This is Rudbeckia deemii. Now, you don't see this for sale as often as you see its cousin, Goldsturm, but this has got such neat petals. I think it's a better form. It's glorious. In any garden, change is the only constant. And I think in the 35 years plus that Margaret has gardened here, she's embraced change, looked for new varieties, but kept plants that others would have confined to the compost heap. And that gives this place something that even the great gardens often lack: character. And I love it.
I do agree with Toby that character is what makes the difference between a garden that you admire and a garden that you love. Now, on this table, I've got a selection of succulents, and they've had a really good summer. Of course, they've loved the heat and the drought, and one or two of them are beginning to flower in an extraordinary fashion. Look at these lithops. These are little stone-like plants that come from the Namibian desert. And for much of the time, they just stay the same. They don't do anything at all. And then, suddenly, they produce these flowers. And that's it. It's a few days, and that's all their activity over. But that's long enough for it to be pollinated. Now, Nick has been to visit a garden that, for various reasons, was left untouched for a long time. And as a result, extraordinary things have begun to find their home.
Just below Rivington Pike Moorland in Lancashire are Rivington Terrace Gardens, which were built in the early 20th century by Lord Leverhulme, one of the great industrialists of his day. But by the 1920s, it had become neglected and eventually returned to nature. Today, however, the charity Groundwork are repairing the gardens in association with the Rivington Heritage Trust. However, this forgotten landscape has become the perfect environment for a whole host of fungi to run riot.
I've come to delve into the soil and look at the unique conditions which have allowed fungus to proliferate here.
I'm meeting Colin Unsworth, an amateur mushroom enthusiast who's been given special permission today to show me around and pick some mushrooms.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Do you know, I haven't seen these for years and years and years. They're like the classic fairy tale mushroom, aren't they?
They're beautiful. They're absolutely stunning.
And this is fly agaric, right?
Fly agaric, yeah. I'm just going to pick one of them just to show you the identification features. I'll pick a nice. So you can see it's kind of got this bulbous, swollen base, and then we've got like a floppy ring underneath.
Okay, yeah.
The white gills, this tells me what family of mushrooms it's in.
Now, notice you're handling that quite freely, but it is a poisonous mushroom.
Give your hands a wash before you eat anything. But yeah, I'm fine to handle this thing and then put it back down again.
What is it about this place, this space, that's made it such a rich ground?
Because of the derelict period, we've got all the leaf fall, we've got lots of standing dead wood, you've got wood rotting away on the floor, and it just creates a really rich environment, good soils.
I noticed back there's an oyster mushroom just growing on the side of a log, which looks quite stunning.
Yes, really interesting species, oyster mushrooms. So you know that the fungi kingdom is, biologically and evolutionary speaking, it's more closely related to the animal kingdom than the plant kingdom.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's not a plant. And the oyster mushroom is quite interesting because it's a carnivorous mushroom. It traps and feeds off nematode worms.
Wow.
That's one of its food sources.
So literally a mushroom is eating animals. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
That's extraordinary.
And this beautiful sort of tract here of crust fungus. So there's a few different species that grow in this sort of manner on the side of trees. We get polypores and crusts, and this is one of the
It's beautiful. It's lovely to see it making its way up.
Yeah.
Up the stem.
Yeah. You know what this is, don't you?
Yes, indeed. This is honey fungus, isn't it? This is the destroyer of gardens, potentially.
It is kind of viewed as the gardener's nightmare. It's a parasitic fungi. There's a few different species, but this is the common one. And it does a really good job of taking out anything that's got a weakness in it. Let's have a look a bit closer. There we go. So you can see the stem coming down, sort of nice brown colour on the stem. And this is the underside, the ring. Gills are one of the identifying features of different mushroom species. And you can see with these that the gills are running in and attaching to the stem. And up on the top, you just get a few tiny little speckles on top in the middle there as the cap opens out, and that lovely sort of honey colour.
I'm aware one of the other sort of identifiers are these black bootlaces people describe.
There are.
As.
And these bootlaces can grow at a rate of up to about 1 metre a year. So this is why, if it becomes a problem, it can be, quite troublesome.
So I suppose the only approach that gardeners can take, and I've certainly done in the past, is to select some of those woody species, trees and shrubs, that are that bit more resilient.
Yeah. There are species you can choose which resist honey fungus better. The usual advice is just let it take its course.
Gardeners are often keen to remove mushrooms from their borders or from their lawns, but actually they're vitally important to the health of the soil. A lot of mushroom species are able to break down plant material and thus return nutrients and minerals to the earth, ready for other plants to uptake. Mushrooms are the only species which are capable of breaking down the lignin in woody plants. And so without them, we just end up with huge piles of plant material everywhere.
Some mushrooms engage in what's called a mycorrhizal relationship with plants. Mycorrhizas help the plants gather more water and nutrients than they would on their own. One of these fungi is the blackening rustler.
I mean, this is a real beast of a mushroom, but it's actually only a tiny proportion of the whole organism, isn't it?
Yeah, the actual organism spreads out in the soil. You don't see it for most of the year. What it does under the ground is it kind of wraps itself around the tree roots. So if you were to extract the tree roots, you'd see this sort of white coating all over them. And basically what it does is it helps the tree to get as many nutrients as possible out of the soil, and it gets a few things back in return for that, so they kind of benefit each other. So a mycorrhizal fungi, for example, you can grow a tree without that mushroom, but with that mushroom it'll grow so much better and so much more healthy, and yeah, it'll survive a lot better. Yeah.
Just a few mushrooms are villains in our garden, but the vast majority have a really important part to play. They're part of the eco-web, which is essentially the interdependence of plants, animals and fungi. And as such, they're absolutely vital to the health of our green spaces and, of course, our gardens.
It is strange that so many of us gardeners are anxious about fungi, even scared about them. I get lots of letters, as though any sign of fungi, mushrooms, toadstools is a problem. And the truth is that they are the fruiting bodies of something that exists under all our gardens. Far more good comes from fungus than any possible harm. And of course they can be delicious to eat. Last night I went collecting field mushrooms in the fields around here, and they were absolutely delicious. Although I would say that if you are not 100% certain of identification and what it is you're eating, then don't eat it. But if you can identify them and you feel confident, then that is another huge benefit that they bring us. Now, no more benefits from tomatoes, I'm afraid. This is the end of their season here in the greenhouse. But don't give up on green tomatoes. Collect them. You can put them in a drawer with a banana and they will ripen. And also green tomato chutney, green tomato soup. It's all very good. They are perfectly edible. But I need the space because with the weather getting colder, I need to start to bring in plants that are not fully hardy. I'll take the tomato plants to the compost heap, but I've managed to salvage a few basil leaves, and I will enjoy both the green and the red tomatoes. The herb garden that we began last year has just settled into place. It's taken 12 months, but it's now functioning. Now, it's been through a good summer. Of course, it's loved this hot weather. But as we go into autumn, and with winter ahead, there are one or two things that you can do to maximize both the harvest over winter and also the health of your herbs for next year. Now, over on this side, which is sunnier, I've got the more purely Mediterranean herbs in blocks. So we have sage, thyme along here, and then along this side, a mixture of oregano and marjoram. And you can see what happens if you don't cut them back. And what you get is just a few sparse leaves on what look like completely dead twigs. And that's what most Mediterranean herbs will do. Things like this marjoram plant. The center of the plant has got masses of new growth. So what I do is cut right back hard, and that's the key. Don't cut halfway up, but go back to the ground. And then next spring, it's starting from the base. And we'll have lovely, beautiful, green, fresh, flavoursome marjoram. However, when you're collecting thyme, and you cut back into just dead wood, there's a risk that there'll be no regrowth. So thyme is tricky. So the answer is never to let it get too bad. And when you cut back, as long as you have some green growth beneath the cut point, you'll get regrowth there. And if you do this from an early stage, it will regenerate from that point. Leave it, and you increasingly get these bare stems underneath, and that becomes more and more problematic. So what I recommend is sowing fresh thyme every year and replacing the plants every 2 or 3 years, because in a British climate, it's almost impossible to stop it growing out and becoming very woody. Now, this is one of my favourite herbs of the season. This is fennel. And you can see that here at Longmeadow, fennel grows majestically. And whilst during the summer we use the foliage, at this time of year it's the seeds that are wonderful. And some of them have gone over and dried, but if you take them when they're green, they are fantastic with pork, with chicken, and I like just munching them. So if you take a few and pop them in your mouth, you get a lovely licoricey aniseed ball flavour. And what we don't eat, the birds will. And we leave the fennel in the ground until spring because their skeletons remain strong, and when they are rimed with frost, they're one of the most beautiful things in the garden. Now, another plant that towers over others in the flower borders at this time of year is the canna. And Carol has been down to Overbeck's garden near Salcombe in South Devon to enjoy it at its very best.
At this time of year, much of the colour in the garden is derived from little dainty flowers, airy-fairy. You yearn for something with tall stems, big, sumptuous leaves, and not gaudy, but glamorous and gorgeous flowers. Nothing could provide it better than cannas. They're the true drama queens of the autumn border. Canna is the only genus in the family Cannaceae. There are only a few species within the canna genus, but there are hundreds of extravagant cultivars in a wide range of colours and habit variations. This magnificent specimen is Canna indica. Great tall stems. At the top of them are these dainty, rather refined orange flowers. But really, the reason you grow it is for this broad, beautiful, bronzy foliage. And after the flowers have finished, they'll very often set seed. You can see it's quite big. Now, the other name for this plant is Indian shot. The story goes that in the Indian Mutiny, the soldiers had run out of lead shot, so they actually used this as ammunition. They shoved it down the barrels of the muskets and off they went again. Well, it's an interesting story, but for me, the whole interest of this plant is in this magnificent stature. It's a true delight and a really definite statement in the borders. This is Canna iridiflora rubra. It's unusual amongst cannas, possibly unique, because instead of its flower stems being upright and reaching for the sky, in its case, they're pendulous and very graceful. It's from Colombia and Peru, so it grows really high up in the Andes. But this plant has become quite familiar in British gardens. It's been here since the beginning of the 19th century or so, and it makes a really beautiful addition to this whole retinue of cannas. Cannas lend themselves to hybridisation. Some of them have been bred to have bicoloured flowers and some to have stripy leaves. In this case, Bengal tiger, it's got the lot. Not only are these gorgeous flowers orange and yellow, sumptuous and exotic, but they're complemented by these lovely big leaves with striations of green on a yellow background. And they look absolutely marvellous, so dramatic. Cannas don't have to take centre stage. Sometimes they act as a foil, a backdrop to the splendid display that you get from plants like these glorious dahlias or the helianthus. This is Dahlia Moonfire, beautiful with these yellow discs and bright orange centres. Or Dahlia David Howard in the foreground. But what really makes the picture is these big, tall stems, these gorgeous leaves with the bidens just here and there, slender stems between them. It's a glorious cacophony of colour. Cannas love rich, fertile soil. Make sure that they're never short of water and give them an occasional liquid feed if you want big, majestic plants with gorgeous flowers. A very straightforward way of growing more cannas is to grow them from seed. This dinky little canna is Canna brasiliensis, and it sets seed quite freely. All you do when these seeds are about to burst asunder is take out the seed into your hand and sow it. Well, I've got my lovely seed here, and if I were to sow it straight away, it might not germinate because canna seed has a very hard seed case. So before I do, I'm just going to scarify the seed. And all you need to do is make sure that you can actually see the white of the seed underneath. I'm going to station sow them. And all that means is I give each one of these compartments in a module tray. When they germinate and they've filled these pots with roots, I can move them on into a bigger pot without having any root disturbance at all. Now, the other way of propagating cannas is to divide them. I have here this great big chunk which we've just sliced off a big clump. As soon as you feel it getting really cold, dig up your cannas. Bring them indoors. As these leaves fade down, you can chop them off. And then, having exposed the rhizomatous roots, you can actually divide them into nice big chunks. As long as you make sure that there's a couple of rhizomes and 2 or 3 of these little embryonic shoots here, you should get a really big plant by the next spring. Pot them up individually, water them well initially, and keep them in a nice warm place to get them growing. It's as easy as that. Cannas are such splendid plants. For very little investment, they pay huge dividends. Enormous, gorgeous, tropical-looking leaves. Beautiful flowers that look like the silk handkerchiefs from a magician's hat. They light up the autumn borders, go beautifully with everything. Who could be without them?
I do think this has been one of the best years for cannas that I can remember, and I'm growing more and more here. And in fact, they have been flowering enthusiastically since the middle of July, and they've gone right through till now. Now, over winter, we don't leave them out, but lift them and take them in. If you've got very free-draining soil and you live in the south and you don't get hard frosts, you mulch over the top of them, then you'll be okay. But we can't risk that. So, when the frost hits them and the leaves blacken, That's when we dig them up. We cut off all the flowering stems down to the ground and pot them into plastic pots that are just big enough to take the roots. And then we pack that round with old compost. And the idea being is we don't want them to grow. We're not trying to nourish them. We're just keeping them ticking over during the winter months. You can put them in a greenhouse, in a cold frame, in a porch. Even a shed is absolutely fine as long as it is frost-free. Water them once a week to keep them moist. And then in spring, they can be planted out after the last frost. Now, although this is tender, it will take some frost. But the banana behind the Ensete is completely tender. And we did have a touch of frost last night, and poor thing, it looked very bedraggled. However, it's recovered well, and I had planned to cut it down and dig it up and be ruthless and look after it. But I don't want to. It's looking great. It's recovered. There's no frost forecast for the rest of this week, so I think I'm going to put that job off for a few more days. But here are some jobs for the weekend that you can't put off. Now is the perfect moment to prune climbing roses. The idea is to create a framework of 5 or 6 largely horizontal stems from which side shoots can grow. So remove all extraneous material growing out from the plant, and then cut back this year's side shoots to a stub. And finally, tie in all loose material. Brick and paved paths can become very slippery at this time of year. And a very simple way of dealing with it is to use sharp sand. Sprinkle a little onto the path and brush it in vigorously with a really stiff brush. And this remains effective for 2 or 3 weeks. Now is a good time to plant out wallflowers, and I like to plant them in pots, underplanted with tulips. Use a really gritty mix. It's good for the tulips as well as the wallflowers, which flower best with their wonderful fragrance in really poor soil. This is a variety of lettuce called saladin, which I haven't grown for years because it's very old-fashioned. And when I was a child, we often used to have them, and I thought they were a bit boring. But actually, it's delicious. It's crunchy, it's fresh, and it's got really good taste, and I can heartily recommend it. And the whole vegetable garden, although we're going into autumn, has got lots left to offer. There's plenty of time for really good harvests to come. But I'm afraid we don't anymore. We've run out of time for today. However, I'll see you back here at Longmeadow next time. Till then, bye-bye.